This set a motivation for our time together. We can recall for a moment that in many places around the world, people are at war. Experiencing the fear, the adrenaline rush, the disconnectedness, the loss of access to their resources that come from violent conflict. In other places around the world, people are destitute, hungry. And it's not just halfway around the world, but also here in our own county, in our own neighborhoods. There are many problems everywhere. You know, here we are in the richest country in the world, still, I think. And yet so many problems, more emotional than physical. But difficulties with our mind, right here, right here. And so to have the resources, the leisure, the interest to come together in a place where we can explore the spiritual dimension of our lives, that alone is very precious, very rare. So we can rejoice that whatever else is going on for us, we are doing quite well in that regard. Because all of these problems, no matter whether it's human-made directly, or even some of the natural disasters we're now experiencing, they don't arise from minds of love and compassion. They arise from minds that are confused, overwhelmed by greed, anger, hatred. And yet, we have at our core the capacity for great love and compassion. So today, as we explore the topics that we're going to explore, let's hold in mind with hope that these qualities of compassion and love can grow in ourselves and that we can be agents to bring that about elsewhere. And as we do that, of course, then the opposites, the minds of anger, hatred, greed, diminish. And we can think about developing these qualities of love, compassion, and wisdom, not just for our own peace of mind, but for the sake of, and ultimately for the benefit of, all these human beings, all these living beings. So that we can enact what we said in our recitation this morning. May all sentient beings have happiness in its causes. May they be free from suffering in its causes. May they not be separated from sorrowless bliss, and may they abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. Let's hold that in our minds. Today is, it's a combination of days. It's a festival day in one way. Today is Lama Tsongkhapa Day. It's the day that we celebrate, represented by this statue, the founder of the lineage that we practice. So this happens this time of year with great lights and offerings and things like that, so we'll cover that today. It's also our last Sharing the Dharma Day of the year, which I imagine is why some of you decided to come today despite the weather. And it's also a day where we join with over 50 denominations and spiritual groups around the country take this period of 2 weeks in December to hold a vigil in memory of the people killed in gun violence over the last year. So all of that we'll try to weave together into today's activities, starting with the talk. So I wanted to begin. We've been studying for maybe this year. I guess we're on chapter 16, I guess, for the whole year. This book by Venerable Thupten Chodron and local psychologist Dr. Russell Koltz. It's a beautiful book. It's called An Open-Hearted Life. Transformative Methods for Compassionate Living from a Clinical Psychologist and a Buddhist Nun. So they come at it from their respective positions of the clinical psychologist and the Buddhist nun. We studied it for about 2 years in Spokane at the Unitarian Universalist Church, and we've become, really seen what a great manual for developing love and compassion it is. And then it's wonderful that we're doing the book again in this Sharing the Dharma Days. So we're on chapter 16, A Healthy Diet for the Mind, which Venerable Lamsel set us up for this morning. I want to start, though, with a bit of an introduction from His Holiness that I think ties all of our themes together today. I began really with His Holiness's words in the motivation, where he talks about today our world is very, very advanced in education. More people can read and write in the world. Well, there are more people in the world, but the percentage that more people can read and write in the world than has ever been. Education is increasing everywhere. And so obviously so is technology, the growth, what we can do, what's possible, how we communicate with each other is faster than I, living in a monastery, can keep up. I suppose that may be true for some of you who don't live in the monastery, right? Way faster than I can keep up. And the question is, can our modern education and can modern technology serve all of our human needs? What do you think? Mostly no. We're getting no. So there are all these situations of conflict in the world still. There are situations where it is said, I can't cite the statistics on this right off the top of my head, but it is said we grow enough food to feed every single person on this planet quite well. And yet, there are people in the world who are starving to death in Yemen right now and other parts of the world. So that's a human problem. It's not just an education problem. It's not just a technology problem. It's a problem, really, of our human heart. That's His Holiness's case. The problem is in our human heart. He says many of our world's problems, there are natural disasters too, for sure. But if we look at the intensity of our recent hurricanes, we look at the intensity of the recent tsunamis, there are volcanoes erupting around the world. I don't think we can maybe tie a direct human link to that. Although the people who talk about fracking and earth shaking can draw a link. But all of these, despite these, even influencing the natural disasters, are what humans are doing to our environment. That's what so many scientists are saying. So many scientists, that it's hard to refute it, especially as people are living through it now these days. And as His Holiness says so clearly, these problems are made by us. It's human beings that make it. He jokes sometimes. He said, if I were Jesus or I was Buddha, people say, please, Jesus, please, Buddha, save us from this. I would look down and say, you caused it, you fix it. And he charges us with that we have not just the responsibility, because that's heavy, but we have the potential. We have the potential to fix it. Why? Because we have our human intelligence, unprecedented in any other realm. We all have minds that work well as a race, as a species. We have minds that are inventive, imaginative, that work well. And His Holiness's case is that at our root, that mind is a mind of compassion and love. Now, His Holiness also cites more and more science that is proving that. It's a soft science, so if you're a hard scientist, you may want to be investigating further. But it's interesting. So one of the studies he talks about is of, I don't know who it was. These studies will show up in the book The Fearless Heart by Thupten Jinpa. I think they're all cited in there. But one of the studies they did was that they showed to small children, like toddlers, pre-verbal, videos of children helping each other and helping other people. And they were measuring the babies. I don't know exactly how they were doing it, but they're measuring the babies. And the babies were so happy watching these images. They showed them images of cartoon figures banging on each other, arguing with each other, which is like the cartoons we grew up with, right? Arguing with each other. And also videos of people in disagreement. And the babies got so unhappy. They were crying. So what they were measuring is the natural response of people who haven't even had a chance to form ideas is that they are happy in a place where there is harmony, help, support, and unhappy where there is conflict. And even in our own experience, how do we respond to an angry face? Forget the words. Right? I mean, you back up, walk around, be a little careful. We keep our distance. It's not safe, right? How do we respond to a smiling face, a relaxed face? We feel safe. We feel comfortable. We feel more welcomed. There's another study. We don't have to go to the science. If you're in a jovial atmosphere, you're in a home or an office or a workplace of any kind where people are generally happy. How are you? Generally happy. We're in a home or a workplace where people are generally angry or upset, unhappy. What does that do to us? Unhappy. We respond to the environment around us, right? And we contribute. It's not a one-way street. We bring our own happiness, our own happy mind, our own relaxed state into the place, and we bring our own bad moods into. And so His Holiness talks about how on a global level, especially these days when we're so connected by that technology, that where there is unhappiness, where the minds of greed and anger are dominant, and that's what we're putting into our minds all the time, it's really hard to withstand it, right? Whereas, how many people look for good news sites? There are some. Yeah, there are some. We're looking for good news, how people are helping each other in the world, trying to turn our mind in that direction. It has a much better effect on our mind. So His Holiness says that with our human intelligence and the seeds of love and compassion, this is what he said, that are already in our minds, we can see what is good and what is bad. Not bad in terms of evil, but what's beneficial and what is harmful. We can be educated not just to technology and science and so forth, but to how to tame our own minds and create happiness. Because His Holiness's contention then, and this is the whole kind of root of Buddhism, is that all of that confusion, all of the uncontrolled, afflicted mind states come from an undisciplined mind. So think 7 billion undisciplined minds Man, that's a lot of chaos. Every little bit we can do personally to discipline our own minds, to bring some sense of calm, to understand how to develop the qualities of peace and happiness in our own minds, will have an effect wherever we go. We're not helpless in this. We are not. And it's really great to be able to get together and shore each other up with this too, because it's easy to lose it. And it's not necessarily the view that's held in the modern, and commonly in society. But His Holiness is actually working very hard to make this education a part of all of our experience, actually. He's going through the studies with bringing compassion training and ethical training into schools. Is happening everywhere, including the United States. I don't know about Spokane yet, but it's working. Spokane is not as some people think. There's a lot of openness here. I mean, look who all's here. Of course, this isn't Spokane, this is Newport. Very liberal place. So the other thing that's important to notice then in tying these things together is that His Holiness is an heir to Lama Tsongkhapa. We are heirs of Lama Tsongkhapa. Lama Tsongkhapa's teachings, it's what we're practicing here. It's what we're sharing with others. Whether people are Buddhist or not, irrelevant. If people are wanting to cultivate this love and compassion and wisdom and to understand the reasoning behind how and why to do it, then we are all students of Tsongkhapa. And so we can celebrate him today. We can celebrate our own capacity to make a big difference in the world. And we can think with compassion about the suffering that's coming from people who are killed with gun violence today too. We'll bring it all together. We'll find a way. So let me turn to the book. A healthy diet for the mind. I'm not going to read every word in this chapter. I have crossed out big sections. I want you to know. But we'll start. It says, this is a chapter that Russell wrote. In a lot of ways, cultivating compassion is like engaging in a mental fitness program for the mind. His Holiness talks a lot about mental hygiene. He says we're all trained in physical hygiene. We all learn to brush our teeth. What? Moms, age 3? Kid can brush their teeth? Huh? Earlier? Younger. Okay. Learn to brush our teeth. We learn to comb our hair. We learn to wash our face. We don't necessarily learn to clean our minds. But this mental hygiene is equally important. So as Russell says, we may have noticed our bodies getting older, putting on weight, aching in places that we hadn't noticed before, and getting out of breath walking up just a few flights of stairs. We can get like this mentally too. Mentally obese with worries and cravings, with flighty minds that get worked up over lots of little details, unable to handle even minor situations that don't go our way. Sound familiar? Seeing this, we decide it's time to get in shape. He means seeing this about our bodies. Most getting in shape regimens involve 2 major components, diet and exercise. In this way, you manage what goes into the body and how we use it. If you're going to lose weight, get in shape, and have a healthy body, you need to eat healthily. La, 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 la. And then if you're going to get in shape, you have to exercise. That's just to this point. And then, this is an important point here. He said, there are things we can do to make this easier. First, we use what psychologists call stimulus control. A stimulus is anything in our environment that can prompt us making different behavior more or less likely. Okay, so stimulus is what triggers us. For example, the presence of different types of foods affect what we will tend to eat. If the behavior we're looking to change involves eating more healthily, a good way to start is to clean out the house. Get rid of the junk food and replace it with healthy food. How many people have been through this process a time or two in their lives? Or 3 or 4 or 5? Well, it works, actually. It works incredibly. You go through the cupboard, you take all this junk out, or all the stuff that you're likely to reach for easily, you take it to the food bank, whatever, and then you fill up the house with stuff, the refrigerator with stuff that's really healthy. Then you don't have any choice. Or if you really have to, if you're really craving something, you have to go outside to get it. And it gives you time to weigh, is it worth it? Is it worth, back in the days when I used to do this, getting in the car and going to get blah, blah, blah? You have to think about that. So if this really works, he says we can do the same things with our minds. Now that's an interesting leap. We can do the same thing with our minds. And that's where he says computer folk have the phrase garbage in, garbage out. This means computers can't tell the difference between good information and bad information. They just run the numbers. Our emotions are like this as well. Think about that. Our emotions are like that as well. They just work with what we give them. And they're not always good at telling the wheat from the chaff. For example, if we continually watch television programs featuring commentators who are working really hard to make us angry, we are likely to feel hostile and angry a lot of the time. I find it so interesting because I've been here now over a decade. So we don't watch TV and we don't watch movies, but we visit our families from time to time and have a chance to see them. But because we don't watch it, how TV, for example, how TV news has changed is stunning. I went, some years ago before my mom died, I went to visit her, and she knows that we can't, so what we could do nature programs together, we could do documentaries together, and since for my mom it was soothing to have the TV on pretty much all the time, so to be with my mother, I needed to be in front of the television. So that was okay. She was totally willing to do programming that was within the precepts that I hold. So we were watching this nature show, and my mom was quite a naturalist, actually. She loved this kind of stuff. And she was a real beach person. So this particular show was on sharks or something. I think it was sharks. And the narrator was showing very interesting things about how they live and how they feed. But the music was like shark music. 20 minutes into this show, I said, Mom, I cannot watch this anymore. I mean, you can stay, but I have to leave. My whole emotional response to how it was framed that the shark was going to eat this fish, and did, and then going to eat another fish, and then the music, boom, 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 boom. It was so unbelievably manipulative. Well done. But only because of my experience of not watching very much, I could see how much I was being controlled. My emotions were responding. Natural empathy was happening. I thought, my God, no wonder my mother is so anxious. This is what she's spending her time with all the time. Recently, I visited my family this past year, and I have a bunch of great nephews that are little. So, it's July. Your parents know that you probably watch the same Christmas movie about 1,000 times. So we were watching this movie about Santa Claus getting lost in Manhattan, right? I'm sitting there with my great nephew. I'm watching this movie. I am weeping. I know it's a movie. I know I am being utterly manipulated. And yet the emotional response to lost Santa Claus, will the dog be found? Will the orphans be saved? It was so interesting to be separated from it, and still have the emotions coming up. Oh my gosh. So our relationship to the media is very, our minds are actually so impressionable. We think that about children. But it's true of even those of us way past childhood, that our minds are open and receptive to what's around us in our environment. And so it's useful to pay attention to what we're putting in our minds, how that works. So, as Russell goes on to say, there's a lot of garbage out there. La 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 la. Invasive tabloid newspapers spreading titillating and malicious gossip about public figures. Right? Deifying them one day, attacking them the next. We're constantly bombarded with images of impossibly thin models held up as the ideal of feminine attractiveness. He says this like an understatement. These images can easily impact one's self-image if we fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to them. That's an understatement. These make us think that we don't fit, that we're not right. There's something wrong with us. And probably, I don't know, men tell me, but the same thing with guys, all these kind of buff guys with muscles and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if men have the same response to seeing these images again and again and again and again and again and thinking, I'm not that. Maybe not consciously, but they're put out as examples of this is what a man looks like, this is what a woman looks like. And then you look around and go, well, who do I know that looks like that? Her. I hate her. Right? So, we have this kind of emotional response to the environment. One of the things when we look at what are the things that make our afflictive emotions arise. So among them, there are 6 things, and among them are the fact that we have those seeds. We have the emotional habits to do that. We have inappropriate attention that gets hooked there, but also it's the media and the input. It's not just the electronic media, but the input that we put into our minds that evoke these negative feelings that arise. Our feelings of lack of self-worth and so forth come from that, as well as our anger, jealousy, pride, and so forth. But, Dr. Russell Colt says, we have a choice. We don't have to accept this. Just as our physical bodies are what we eat, the contents of our minds are shaped by what we pay attention to. I was just recalling a quote. It's on the bottom of somebody's emails. Kathleen's, or maybe it's Tracy's. What we attend is what we become. William James. What we attend is what we... Yeah, what we attend to becomes our reality. What we attend to becomes our reality. That's something to reflect on too. A, is it true in my experience? And then B, what am I attending to? We have a choice. Just as our physical bodies are what we eat, the contents of our minds are shaped by what we pay attention to and by what is available in the environments we inhabit. We can prepare to fill our minds with nutritious substances by first choosing to avoid media that glorifies and desensitizes us to violence, pornography, and other objectified depictions of sexuality, and material that depicts people in stereotyped or exploitative ways. That's one choice we can make. If we look, we find there is a world of healthy mental food out there for us to feast on. Do you believe that? You have to search for it. If we look, I think is the phrase here. If we look, there is a world of, what is he called? Healthy mental food. For every junk food film out there, he says, there is an inspiring story of kindness, a documentary of someone who has overcome adversity that we can't even dream of, a movie that provokes us to mentally explore the world in new ways. I, Russell, have found the healthiest way to use the internet is to do so purposefully, seeking specific things, be it news, information about things that I'm interested in, or ways to connect with like-minded people. I have found if I just surf, I'll often find myself in rather polluted waters. Is that your experience too? Having wasted a good bit of time in getting there. So this is one place where I would say our Buddhist thought is going to diverge from our psychologist friend, Dr. Russell. Because it's not just the movies that we look at. It's not just the books that we read. But we can also train and discipline our minds to how we think. And that's where the legacy of Lama Tsongkhapa comes in. People who have been studying this book, actually, and people that we've been, doing the course in Spokane have really learned over time. I think not everybody knew that when they came in, that you can change the way you think. We can look around us, for example, and change the mind that says everybody's out to get me by spending a lot of time looking at how much kindness there is. How much kindness there is in our direct experience, and how much kindness there is in the world. For example, none of us would be here, could be here this morning if we were not the recipient of tremendous kindness. The food we eat that keeps us alive, the healthy food or the junk food, whichever track you're on at the moment, comes from other beings. Even you baked bread this morning. Most of us didn't. But you for sure did not grow the wheat, you did not mill the flour, you did not do your Greek gluten-free flour, if that was your need and necessity. Somebody is doing all that work for us. All we have to do is go to Safeway, or wherever, Safeway where all those people are working today on a Sunday, using the money that we got from the jobs that we got from somebody who gave us work, somebody who set up the company we work for, somebody signing those checks, somebody's doing all the accounts for all those things that we got the money for. All of that kindness, so much we experience. And it's easy to say, well, that's not kindness. People are just doing their job. They're just making money. And who knows what their motivation is for work. But the bottom line is, the point of this whole reflection on the kindness of others is that we still benefit. We are the beneficiaries of the good work of other people everywhere we turn. This building itself, the fact that the heat is on and works, it's not 48 degrees in here or whatever it is outside, colder, it's frozen. We're warm. And if it's a little bit chilly in here from what you're used to, everybody's got on a nice jacket or a long sleeve shirt, everybody looks pretty well clothed. Where did all that come from? From other beings. So even something as simple as this, cultivating a mind that develops the habit to look not at what we don't have, which we're so good at seeing, that we miss all that we do have. We miss the support that we get in the world. We miss all the good things that we have going for us. So many good things. So develop a habit of a mind that's looking at that. Completely changes our attitude towards the world. You can only, gratitude eventually, no matter how you resist it, gratitude will naturally, eventually arise. Some gratitude for for all that we have, for all that's good. A grateful mind is a happy mind. A grateful mind is always a happy mind. And that's when we can begin to share with others. So we have to develop a habit. It's not, it's not like we can just have this reflection one time and go, wow, that's really true. Cool. And then from then on, we're grateful. The mind is malleable, but it's malleable with training. Needs training. But even to set a motivation every morning to say, okay, today, it's one of the things we train with here. Today I will harm no living being with my body, speech, and mind. That's first of all. To the best of my ability, I will try not to harm anybody. Secondly, I will try to be of help. I'll try to be of benefit. And third, I will develop to the best of my ability my compassion to the extent that I want to help every living being. And for us, by becoming a Buddha. And you can make a third one that says, in order to do that, a fourth one, in order to do that, I will recognize the kindness in myself and others and work to practice that kindness. It's a step. It's not the whole path. But oh my gosh, it's a profoundly different way of viewing the world. And when we change their mind of how we look at the world, it's a profoundly different way of being in the world. Yeah? So it's not just looking at feel-good movies. That won't do it. It will improve the situation of our mind, for sure. If we're spending more time doing that than watching people blow each other up, or I don't even know what's in movies anymore, but there's a whole lot more sex than there used to be. I know that. I just see that on the sidebar of my computer. Like, whoa. Not seeing it directly, but sorry, that's not what I mean at all. But seeing that, the sexualization of things that shows up and like, what? Get off of that page. And that's just from trying to check a headline. So it's not just that. Our minds are trainable, and we're the ones that can train them. We're the ones that have to make that change. He also says, this is best of all, we can go out and naturally connect with each other and with nature. So connecting with each other is another important thing. Text messages are great for efficient communications, but they can't capture the warmth of real human interaction between people who like and respect one another. I don't know about most people in this room are not of the generation that would text the same people in your house. Are you guys texters? Oh yeah, there's a couple in this generation. Yeah. One of our friends is a middle school counselor, and a mom came to her a few years ago and asked her for help. She said, my daughter comes home from school. I asked her how her day was. She says, fine. And then she goes downstairs and texts me some horrible event that happened. She said, I don't know, the mom said, how to have her talk to me. So that's an extreme story and very sad. But we all need to look at how much we're relying on those electronic devices for our communication, for our contact with others. And especially if we have kids at home. How much of an environment of warmth and connection we can keep bringing. One of the things in our I didn't bring all the statistics. I was looking up the gun violence stats this morning. You may have seen the notice that suicides are up tremendously this year. They've been growing. And it's huge among young people. Huge. Connection. Learning to reach out, how to be in relationship with each other in a human way. Now, there's no science that proves that. This is but an awful lot of people who know about people are saying how important it is that we stay connected with each other and that we learn to talk to each other across our differences. The polarization we've all lamented, that we learn to speak to each other in a real human way. That this will make a difference too. Nourishing our mind with healthy experiences doesn't mean we can't have fun. It's about bringing intentionality to what we put in our minds. So what's our intention? What's our motivation? In Buddhism, that's critically important. Just to check our motivation. I'm going to have this latte, which we don't drink, but I know you all do. I'm going to have this latte because I'm dying to treat myself. Or I'm even going to, before I do this, I'm going to offer this beautiful, delicious drink to all the qualities that I find meaningful. I'm going to offer it to the Buddha or whoever I take refuge in. I'm going to offer it with the thought that may everybody, everywhere, have something that is warm and soothing for them in the cold. One pause, one thought, expand that motivation. That's what brings our spiritual practice into our daily life. Learning to bring these qualities of love, compassion, and wisdom and our attention to wanting to cultivate that into everything that we do. This means we choose what our minds are exposed to, knowing that the things we attend to become a part of us. They change us. The things that we attend to change us and shape our experience of the world, other people, and ourselves. He says, remember the phrase, garbage in, garbage out. Rather than consuming whatever is put in front of us, we can consider the potential effects of how we attend to things. So I want to make one very quick it's a little bit of a leap. But it's looking at this thing about even the celebration, the commemoration of this gun violence thing. So today we are acknowledging something that happened on December 14th, I think, 6 years ago. Sandy Hook, the Sandy Hook killing, where 28 people died, 20 of them children, around the age of 6, right? Since the Sandy Hook shooting, there have been over 1,000 mass shootings in this country. Mass shootings defined as 4 more people are involved. 4 more people are injured or affected. They're not all killed. That's a lot of shooting. It's a lot of dying. And the point here, this year there are 307 mass shootings in the United States, this year alone. 13,000 people died. That doesn't count the 22,000 gun suicides that happen every year. So 35, they figure. And this is not, not to talk about guns or access to guns, although that is a factor. It's this deeper problem of what arises from an undisciplined mind. And how, as a society, we don't learn how to discipline our minds. We don't learn about our emotions. We don't learn about how to think so that we can check, is what I'm apprehending here real? Is this really true? What I'm thinking? I just got bullied. The 9-year-old boy, actually he hung himself, 9-year-old boy who killed himself just a few months ago, came out to his parents as gay, 9 years old, went to school, told somebody, they bullied him, he went home and hung himself. We look at this, it's like, how do we live with this? And this brings us back, I think, to the legacy of Lama Tsongkhapa. We respond, we react, oh my God, because we have the seeds of love and compassion in us. Because empathy is a part of who we are. And we cannot save that child, but every day in our lives when we can attend to what we're putting in our minds, We can attend to how we're developing these qualities of love and compassion in ourselves. And we can, once we have some confidence in that, we easily start to reach out to help each other within the ways that we can. Not to overstretch, not to give away the house, but, to help others. And His Holiness, again, to come back to him to end, he's so clear that when we're helping others, when we're putting our own interests aside so that we're really working to benefit other people, we're so much happier. So much happier. And we can take strength and courage from that. We can build our self-confidence on that. It's not like we're not going to fall down. It's not like we're not going to get hit. It's not like things aren't going to shock us and we'll, fall back to our mental habits. But the more we cultivate the mind that's going in the different direction, even just beginning to develop this kindness of others reflection every day, our mind changes. And then we have more and more compassion muscle to be of benefit to others. So, I've talked a long time. And there's a little bit of time for comments, questions. I don't know about answers, but for sure, thoughts. Dan? Oh yes, if people will please use the microphone when you do that, it's not just for our benefit, it's for the people who will watch the video someday.
I was just thinking how it's important to remember that, in terms of the stimulus that Dr. Colt spoke of, it's actually not the cause, right? So from a Buddhist perspective, I guess you would call that a kind of cooperative condition, but the real cause for whatever troublesome emotion I'm having is my own mind, actually, right? Yeah. But, I also was thinking that, I wonder if there's a more, for myself at least, there's a more middle way approach, because I feel there's this tendency sometimes for when we see things in the media that we don't like to just stick our head in the sand, you know what I mean? And say, this heart-wrenching image of a child starving in Yemen, I don't want to deal with that right now. You know what I mean? That's just too much, man. I'm going to turn it off. But actually, I think it's important to look at that, because how can I take the pain, the discomfort of that deeper, to transform my mind? And I don't know, I think that finding some balance about what we watch is important, but I also think if I just shut down and say, I don't want to deal with any of this stuff anymore, that's like a path of fear and denial, actually. And so it's important, for me anyway, it's important that I want to stay engaged about what's going on in the world and see what's, and at the same time, I got to be careful not to indulge in, the president said this again and did what, and then feel righteous and just kind of go off on that path too, but, and at the same time, like you said, finding the good things, the good qualities in people, and trying to find some balance around that, I guess. And I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of really painful, uncomfortable stuff that it's important for myself to look at and figure out why it's like that, and then also seeing the good qualities in others as well.
Yeah, I agree, actually. And we have to know where we are at any given moment and where we are in our practice and in our life. The more we can look at that pain and hold it with love and compassion and practice with that, great. If we look at it and we totally get depressed and think the world has gone to hell and there's no reason to live, then stop looking for a while, right? Right. So we have to know our own mind and take the medicine that's working for us in our practice at that time. But I totally agree with you. Anything else?
I have 2 teenage boys, 15 and 17, and one of the big things that we've argued about significantly is Facebook. Social media in general. I refused to let them have it until they turned 16 years old, and then I felt that they were old enough to have it. And then the more that I'm on Facebook, I realize I don't even want on Facebook anymore. I've gotten to the point where I either block people or I block pages or I block everything at this point. Why have it? I keep going down that path. And my 17-year-old still does not have social media. He felt that he didn't need it. He didn't see the point in having it anymore. And So on one hand, I was very grateful that, it's just these kids on there bullying each other and doing all of these things with one another. So, but I was torn too that I'm hiding and, I'm hiding it from them and for them. And anyway, I guess I think Facebook and social media for the kids is a big deal and a big problem. And I don't know there's a good one answer solution for it, but anyway, that was my comment, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if this is reassuring, but and this is a little bit different, but I have a dear friend whose son was a boy. He wanted to watch TV and he wanted to play video games. And he was not allowed, not allowed, not allowed, not allowed, not allowed. When he went to other boys' houses, he did, but not at home. So now he's close to 30, my goodness. But just a few years ago, he went to his mom and he said, "Thank you so much that," I say all my friends wasting their lives still doing video games. And I don't have that hook. He said, "I am so glad." So who knows? Yeah.